Welcome, Reinhard. How are you today?
I'm very fine.
Great. Great. Thank you, Reinhard, for accepting this opportunity or to come to this interview. And hopefully the discussion we're going to have today will help a lot of people who are aspiring to be program manager, or they are program manager, but they wanted to get into the next role. Most people go through the interview process, and how you perform in the interview, how you answer the questions, how your body language and what you share, how you share, all matters. You never know which point has given you the job at the time. So you, as a program manager, management role, applied and you are successful for the interview. So I'm going to have some questions for you. And before I get started with the interview, let's establish what is program management is. So program management, as most people probably know, project management is, where you get a product or service delivered. But program management, where you coordinate multiple interdependent projects to deliver the outcome and the benefit for the organization. Generally, programs are very large size, where you are working with many many stakeholders, and taking from beginning to end with the benefit delivery to the organization. So this is in nutshell, and I will be asking you questions. A generic question, we will get into the more serious question a little later, maybe in the next series. But today I have a few questions for you, and we're going to talk about. So, Reinhard, first of all, you can introduce yourself. Tell me about yourself, who you are, where you are, and yeah, please go ahead.
Thanks, Dharam. Who I am? A good question. I'm Reinhard Wagner. I was born in the Black Forest. That's a rural area in Germany. And my first step in my careers were in the military. And that's a very important step, because I did also the first projects and programs in the military career as an officer in the air defense. And as you know, in the military, also in leadership education, you learn about the strategic level, the tactical level, and the operational level of doing things. I think that's very much related to program management, but I will explain a bit later. Then I studied electrical engineering, so I'm an engineering guy. And it also feeds very much into program management, because one of my topics, which I specialize in, was systems engineering. Because also in electric and electronics, typically you develop quite complex systems. Systems engineering as a discipline is also related to the aerospace and defense industry. And what you basically do, you have, let's say, the technical people that focus on the architecture requirements and more the technical stuff, but you always need someone to organize the technical stuff. And that's, again, another bridge into project or program management, what we see in systems engineering. And so in the last years, I worked very much also in automotive industry. Again, we have very complex systems. And so a total car development project is a very complex thing. You have a lot of processes to integrate. So integration is very important, from product development throughout production. Then you have all these disciplines like hardware, software, electronics. Nowadays, a lot of software stuff. So the integration part of automotive projects and programs is a key thing. But in automotive industry, at least in the German automotive industry, the term program is not that much used. It's more in the American, in the US industry, automotive industry. I just returned from Detroit. They basically talk big about programs in automotive industry. But in Germany, our understanding is also a bit more on projects and so on. And in the last, let's say, 20 years, I also looked into education and teaching of project, program, and portfolio management. I'm now a consultant also to government, to company leaders, and advise them how to introduce program management, project management, and all these levels, and make use of it. So that's a long story, I know, but I have a long career now, more than 35 years in that field, and it's still exciting because it opens a lot of different perspectives and a lot of stuff that still now I can learn, want to learn, and through doing projects and programs.
Great. Thank you very much, Reinhard. It's a beautifully presented your own, because you need to talk about who you are, and you talk about your qualification, your expertise, and your certification level if you have, and the relevant experience, whatever a job you're applying for. Talk about and emphasize more on the experience you have, which is related, which the interviewer can relate with, and talk about specific skills and expertise you have in that area, and talk about your interest, what made you to think about program management as a career, which and talk about your industry you're coming from, like you talked about the automobile industry, and some specifics about that, like you talked about electrical, and now it's more emphasis on the software, and maybe artificial intelligence if you have something on that. So and focus on key achievements. Mention about the achievement. This was maybe a significant reduction in the time, whatever, or increasing the margins and this and that. So be specific. Yep. What else? Your passion or commitment, to the program management, and if you have certain hobbies or something which unique, definitely mention it here. And I will tell you why mentioning of hobbies or some interests you have can be a plus point for you, especially when you're going through an interview and you realize that, or interviewer realize that you're not performing as expected. So they may ask you a question around your hobbies or something which you're passionate about, especially when they like to hire you and they're not seeing what they want to see from you. So these things, hobbies and passion, can be a icebreaker for them to bring you out from where, if you're not performing, to start performing, the way they're expecting. And so, talk about that unless they ask you about that. Great stuff. Thank you very much. And I think from the interviewer point of view, I'm happy the way you, answer the question. So I can move to the next question.
Sure.
All right. So, Reinhard, you applied for this role, and this role is very, very strategically important for the organization. But why do you think you fit for this role well?
And that's a bit related to the first question. As I said, I started my career in the military as an officer.
Mm-hmm.
And I already touched on that you always have these three levels, the strategic level, the tactical level, and the operational level.
Yeah.
It's very important being a program manager, because a program typically is a strategic endeavor. It has a long range perspective. So you need to think and understand the strategic thinking of the CEO of the company or your sponsors and so on, and fit your program into that perspective. But the program itself, I would believe it's a more tactical endeavor.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned in the beginning, it's not a project where you just execute something and deliver something. No, it's interrelated, interconnected projects, so operations that pay into a long term, into a more tactical benefit. And I think that's what you learn in the military, to be, let's say, fluent on all these levels, and also agile to switch the levels. And that's exactly what I believe program managers should be able to do. And then also, I said I'm a systems engineer. So I have a strong background in technology. So I understand technology, but my passion is more on the organizational side of that. So I don't do, let's say, a deep dive into a specific technology like AI or so. but I'm the one that gets things done. And that's the organizational view of a program manager. And it's a great symbiosis in very complex programs that you have someone more with a technical focus and the other one with more the organizational focus. So you need, as a program manager, a clear view on your schedule, the work and the way of working in the program. You also sure have quality as an aspect, that's very important, but also leadership and this kind of soft skill things, because at the end it's the team, the people that perform the work. And if you are a nerd, let's say, nothing negative about nerds, but for a leadership role, nerds are more introvert, are not the right person. So it needs both. It needs the technical side of the leadership, but also the organizational side. And this is why typically in very large, complex programs, you have both in the, let's say, kind of double leadership, the more technical leader and also the organizational or program leader. And finally, maybe why I'm fit for this role, because I love this. And what especially is what I love with programs, you never know what will happen in the future. So you may have the perfect plan, everything is scheduled and so on, but next week, suddenly something changes in the environment, or the stakeholders change their views, and I just performed an assessment of such a program, and we had a proposal of how to continue, and the sponsors changed 2 or 3 times now their mind which way to go. But that's part of the game, and you need to be patient with your sponsors and the people and try to find a way. But on the other hand, also show your passion in delivering such a program. So all that, I think, is very important. And in my career, I had a lot of opportunities to really experience that, demonstrate that, and so this is why still I can say I love it.
Thank you, Reinhard. Very, very well said, and lots of good points in this response. Especially, you have to relate. You need to show the first understand the role, what role, which industry you're going for, and see how closely you're aligned with their expectation, and demonstrate that via showing them your qualification, your skills and experience, or certification or education, and pick relevant experience. If you're going for a data center program, then talk about some work you did as a data center migration, something like that, which other person can easily see that, okay, yep, I'm really looking for data center person, which is very complex environment. He has already done it, so he is familiar with that. He or she is familiar with that. And talking about the specific industry knowledge you have in that area, how passionate about you are in that, like automobile, you can talk about, yep, this is automobile. I've been working this for last 30 years. And this is why, I like to continue in this, what I've learned from this, and I want to apply those learning, the lesson learned I have. I want to bring it and, want to add value to your organization. So that's what should be reflected in the conversation. Of course, at the end of the day, why any organization is going to hire you, especially because your experience and your, how closely you align with the, expectation, and more important, how committed you are for this my program or the work we have for you. Yeah. And adaptability is another thing. How closely, are you adaptable with changing circumstances? Otherwise, some people I've seen, they're very rigid. This is how I do, this is my style. Versus, yep, that's fine. We know this is a difficult time, or this is, we'll adopt according to that. Team collaboration, yeah. Of course, you are playing the bigger role as a program manager, but at the same time, you are a team player as well. You work with the team to ensure that everybody are having that atmosphere is created for them, so that they can do the job as best as possible. So talk about the servant leadership, not only in Agile, anywhere you can use that, and demonstrate how you talk about the problem solving skills you have, conflict management skills you have, again, passion, show your passion for the program management. And alignment, if you have done the research, the company value, and how your value aligned with the company value. So if this alignment can happen, demonstrate that, the chances of getting that job is much, much higher for you. Any other tips you have, Reinhard?
Well, I think this reflection also, that you are self-reflective in the interview, that you also maybe critically look at the programs you have done and your role, and turn it into something that is attractive to the interviewer, so that he sees that you're not just making up a nice story, but also being reflective of what is the essence of program management and your contribution to that. I think that's also being authentic.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah, so I think that's basically it.
Yeah, being authentic, being genuine. I mean, if you are telling lies, you may not believe it, but the interviewer can realize that. And not from your, the words you say, the way you say, from your body language, your expressions, that reflect a lot. So stay with whatever you have, your own experience and your own examples. So one thing they like to see, how honest you are, how genuine you are in your presentations. So especially when you talk in the program, the reporting you do, and we talk about code of ethics. How are you an ethical person? How closely aligned with our values and all this. Great. Thank you. It was good question, good response, and I hope people are finding this useful. Please let us know if you are. So my next question is, tell me about a successful program you had led.
Yes, I have many, but I just picked now one that is very interesting to me. And that is EU flagship program. So it's an R&D environment, because the European Union is sponsoring research programs with multi-billion programs in the Horizon program. And we applied with a program for one of these flagship programs, which means a 10-year endeavor. So it's groundbreaking research in a certain area where several institutions from several European countries work together to get something done. And our topic was, in that case, robotics. So the human robots. It means robots that play a role in households, help elderly people, so in medical or healthcare, so that they help people to stay at home and, let's say, having the helping hand of a robot.
Yeah.
And the challenge with that is that you cannot use robots like in the industrial plant, like in the production. So you need to have a different type of robot with a human, let's say, face, emotional kind of show, but also with a skin, because if you touch elderly people with a, let's say, metal, so that is cold, that is, people don't like that. So we have had the opportunity to really dive into what does that really do. I was the manager for this setup of this flagship program, because at the end, out of 10 proposals, the European Union picked one. And I can tell you now, it was not ours that was picked, because, and I will explain why, and why still it was a very successful program in my view. They picked finally the human brain project. So with computers to really simulate the human brain and do a lot of stuff about this. This program is still running, it's not yet finished. It's close to finish now, but that was the successful one that was picked out of all the others. The success of our program was that we were able to really bring together 23 professors, institutions from 23 European countries, which is a very complex endeavor, because you need, every one of these professors had a very specific view on these robots, maybe the face, or the steering, or the skin of the robot, or whatever. And they were very proud of what their knowledge and experience and technology is. So our task was to align them all into one program, so that they all support one direction, one objective for that program, because otherwise we would never be successful. And we were successfully integrating and converging the ideas of these 23 professors through a program management approach, to a governance system, to many workshops, communication, stakeholder management, and all this stuff. Because also we saw in this very highly technical field that we need more the soft skills side to bring all these specialists, I could use the term nerds, into one direction of the program. And we did not get the full flagship program sponsored or funded by the European Union, but that triggered an immense collaboration among those people, also beyond our program setup. So they worked together because they liked this working together. And that triggered a lot of research, other research projects. I'm not sure whether it's more than 1.5 billion as the original amount was, but it triggered a lot of collaboration. And we also learned that it's not just the technology in such a program. And we got a lot of feedback. In Europe, people do not like the idea of having a robot at home. We know that's very different in Japan or China, but in Europe, people are very aggressively sometimes against robots in a household. And I'm not talking about Alexa, but I'm talking about someone, a robot touching you, a robot feeding you, because people don't have trust in that kind of machine. So our approach was premature. And this is also why the politicians that decided on the selection of this flagship program did not select ours. The learning actually is that we need to have a very focus on communication of our objectives in such a program, also addressing the concerns people may have, or the pitfalls of such, let's say, an invention or an R&D project, and involve people more to reduce their resistance towards these objectives and so on. And that was one of our main learnings, that in Europe, where we have a very critical view on high tech, we need to focus on such R&D programs, on programs in general, also the same in infrastructure programs, to focus on communication. Because it's a change, people are very slow here in adopting these kind of technologies. China, they are very much faster in that. But in Europe, it takes a while. People have a lot of concerns, data protection, etc., etc., etc. So this is why I still believe that was a very successful program, because we learned a lot. We did not get to the, let's say, final jackpot of this fund, but in essence, it was very successful.
Great, thank you. Thank you for sharing your example. Very nice. So you did talk about, first we need to, build the ground foundation. What is the program all about? And, what are the key drivers? And show the importance of the program, why this program was strategically important for the organization, and the complexity involved in that, because you mentioned 23 professors from 23 countries. They have their own expectations and our expertise. And working with them actually itself is a big thing, with different expectations. So that's very important. It talks about the stakeholder engagement skills, how you engage with the stakeholder, and get them to do the work, expected work in the time frame. So that can be itself is a big challenge, because organization to organization, the stakeholder engagement can be different. If you're working for school For example, where you are going to work with teachers and principals, that's a different engagement. Versus when you're working for stock exchange market, your engagement may be different. When you're working for the oil and gas industry, there's an engagement is different. So yes, very important to demonstrate the stakeholder engagement. Talking about the prioritization of project, how you did the prioritization of the project, and what that lead into a success of your program. And not to forget about the risk management part, because one of the things as a project program manager is you need to foresee what is about to happen. And if you can foresee, and you are about, that you have identified and you have a plan, if that happens, you are ready. It's not, okay, chaos when, we don't know what to do. So by doing the proper risk management, risk identification, risk mitigation plan, you will be in better position. That's something you do talk about. And another thing is the performance metrics. Very important, because the stakeholders or the interviewer like to know what was your performance metrics, and how did you measure them, and talk about those numbers. The expectation was this and you did. And even if you sometimes not met the expected number, you talk about them. Again, being authentic is very important. And you can talk about why those performance metrics were missed, and what you did to bring them up, or that it is also seen as the positive side of you. So yeah, anything else you like to add, Reinhard?
No.
Yeah, great. So thank you for the responses and giving the specific example. So guys, so do your research, know your before you go for the interview, you should know about which project or which program you're going to talk about, and do research about that program, especially that program. If you can pick the program which is aligned to your current role where you're applying for, that will add more value. If you're going for data center migration or cloud setup, so something talk about which you did in past about data center experience. So, and that's where the interviewer will be watching what did you do, and then they can relate what is happening in my current projects, the current program. Fantastic, thank you. So, all right, my next question is, how do you measure success in your projects or program?
That's also a very great question, because success is something subjective.
Yeah.
And I repeat that because I think that's very important to understand that. Subjective means success is if you meet the expectations of your stakeholders. And there are plenty of stakeholders, and that's also the problem in projects and programs, that your own expectation may be a different one than your sponsor's expectation, than your team's expectation, or they say the beneficiaries of your program's expectation, etc. So what I often hear that project success is staying in time, in budget, and quality. And also these Gartner surveys about how many projects fail because they are not staying in the deadlines and budgets and stuff. And for me, that's fully nonsense. Because these are the triple constraints that is constraining the project. Sure, it may be one of the expectations your sponsor may have, but that's, I think, the worst or the minimum requirement you would need to have as a measurement for success. Now, for me, project success is much more. It's also a bit flying into the future. So if you deliver something like an IT program, so your deliverable will be the software that is installed somewhere and people can just use it, okay? That's maybe a deliverable. But what for? What for do we do this software? There's a certain benefit or an expectation or an outcome expected, so that you do a process faster. By how much faster? So is it 20% faster, or you use less resources for it, so you reduce your headcount by 20%? that you are more accurate in the data you process in that process or whatsoever. So you need to look through the eyes of the one that is sponsoring the project. So what is the deliverable for? And I love the term impact. So what is the impact of your projects and the program? We're talking here about the programs. Does the software help you now to do more business in the same time with less resources, with less cost and so on, so you're more competitive? And that's maybe an impact that's from a strategic perspective, I think the more critical one. If you do not achieve that in, let's say, your deadline, like scheduled, or you have to spend 5% more of your budget, but it well pays off in the end if your outcome is much bigger, strategically more relevant than just staying in the constraint. So I think success in projects is the long-term perspective of the benefits, of the impact, and especially in programs, the term benefits realization. I think that's also a key function, a key concept that we use in program management beyond what we use as methodology in projects. And now if you add the strategic perspective, benefits pay into a strategic objective, becoming more competitive, becoming more, let's say, a growing company in the world. And so then you have all these strategic, the tactical, the operational levels of success. And that is what you need to check before you start in a program. And that's what we focus on if we start a program, more than just having very detailed plans for everything, because that does not really help. But the measurement of the objectives and the impact that you create through the program is the most important one.
Good job. Thank you. Thank you for your answer. So yeah, look, how do you measure success of your program or a project? Yes, you rightly said we need to talk about the specific, measurable, attainable, the SMART objectives we talked about, and have a measurements which you measure them. And again, success is different to different stakeholders. Show them that, okay, from the organization point of view, what success means, from the beneficiaries point of view, what success means, from the program point of view, what success means. For your PMO, they have different view of looking at your program. So it's not just an always triple constraint. Yes, we do talk about the triple constraint, time, cost, and the scope, but also the customer satisfaction, your engagement. You may have done a great job by bring the project, finishing the program much earlier than the time frame, and you save the money, but still the customer not happy. Why? Because the engagement was not there. You're not engaged them at the right time. You done the job, fantastic, but you need to show that the stakeholder engagement was there. And, of course, one of the things is your adherence to the budget, how closely you will adhere to the budget. But that can be one of the focus. Did you spend over the budget? If yes, how over? That can be a measurement. Sometimes they don't care about the budget, but more about the dates. Let's say Olympics games. Olympic has to be finished by a certain date. So even sometimes you spend more money to get the work done, but the schedule is the constraint. Quality of the deliverables can be also seen as one of the measurements. And yeah, risk management. How well you did the risk management? How were you able to identify most of the risks before we get into that stage, and you manage them effectively? Change management point of view, you can talk from the change management point of view, how the changes, the organization changes we are bringing, how smoothly those go and gone into the, with people accepted that, sometimes, yeah. So, if you ask me, I do talk about one of the program where my stakeholder engagement made this program successful, because I spent a lot of time working with these 13 different teams across various places, and I build relationship with them, understanding what they do, what they need from me, and all kind of thing. And this particular project went very smoothly on the production night with no problem happened. And another program, the other program was happening for another bank, same, two part of the bank, and they were struggling whole night. Anyway, so they have their own challenge. Yeah, talking about the lesson learned from those that successful project or program, whether good or bad, you should be ready for talking about both. And post-implementation evaluation and talk about some of the learning from that as well. Compliance, sustainability, those some of the things you can specifically mention. Sustainability can be one of the things the organization looking for. Talk about the sustainability, how you ensure that the program, the benefit you deliver, going to be sustained or sustained by the operations. Yeah, anything you like to add to this, Reinhard?
Maybe the social dimension of programs. I finished last year a series in the PML journal about the social impact of projects.
Mm-hmm.
So it means the social impact the program may have on the beneficiaries, but also the program team, the wider stakeholder groups and so on. So are they satisfied with the program? Did they get enough benefits for themselves? For example, learning in the program or on the next career step, etc. So if you are technically successful, but the team is unhappy, you're not successful. So it's a 360 degrees view of, let's say, success criteria. And this is why it's so important to look into this multiple criteria of success and not just one dimension. Again, not just the triple constraints fulfilled.
Yeah,
that's nonsense.
And when you are starting a program, when you know these stakeholders, understand what they see the program success from their point of view. Of course, you cannot meet everybody's requirement, but see if you can meet most of the requirements. Anyway, so there are a few things you can talk about in this question, and it can be again very good question. The way you respond to this question can be very impactful during the interview. All right, my next question is, how did you complete your recent program? And list the top interesting, challenging programs. How are you going to use the lesson learned in the future?
We just tackled a bit on the lessons learned. What I have experienced that is very important, if you set your objectives for the program, also look at the learning dimension of the program. So what do you want to learn? What kind of learning objectives is important for the organization? So we have the OCB and IPMA, the ipma Organizational Competence Baseline, and it focuses on organizational learning. So, it does not mean that you need to wait until the end of a program to capture that, because in a program which spans 10 years, you have lost all the lessons learned already in the end. So I think it's a continuous process that you should do after each sprint. If you work agile, do a retrospective, a review of the way of working, a review of your deliverables, whatever. And this is why it's so important to start with learning objectives, because then you have a focus on what do we want to learn out of this program. Otherwise, it's just, okay, you have a blank sheet of paper sitting in front of it and say, what was it? What is maybe interesting? And so, again, I'm coming from the strategic perspective. The organization needs to tell, okay, what are the learning objectives that we have maybe for this year? And then on the program level, on the technical level, you should implement these kind of learning through your learning objective. And in the projects, you also need to resonate to those kind of learning objectives and just collect lessons learned to that specific point. It can be efficiency of working in projects and programs. It may be just new technology like AI or machine learning applied in projects and programs, etc., etc. That's what you need to define. And a good North Star for this is always your strategy of the organization. Maybe formulate in a balanced scorecard approach, which you break down into program and project objectives on what do we want to learn. Okay, and then at the end, you certainly capture everything. You ensure that everything is also given to the PMO, or let's say the sponsor, to be incorporated into standards that you have in your organization. So the standards are always updated through the lessons learned. You make it available for the next project or programs so that the people just can build their new programs on the lessons learned. And so that you make it also internal in the company available through a SharePoint, any kind of tool, also through trainings, so that the people can learn from these kind of lessons. So many mechanisms, but at the end, you need to close the loop within the project and program already, so micro-learning, but also across the portfolio of projects and programs, so that the whole organization finally learns.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Reinhard. Good response. So yeah, when you're answering this kind of question, of course, you should talk about some of your highlight programs. Interesting, talk about why they were interesting, what are the challenges involved in that particular program. So be specific and give them example, the one or two, not too many, but yes, two should be enough, maybe three if you have more. Talk about them. And then what are the learning, as you have mentioned about the lesson learned. Lesson learned is very, very important for, from a program project manager point of view, how you identify those that lesson learned, how you analyze them, and use this for learning for future. So you talk about that, and be specific about those lesson learned. This is how we are able to identify, and this is what we have to use it for future projects. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to repeat the same mistake again and again. And if you have learned something which can be avoided in my program and my company's program, that role you are being hired, then it will be even better. Okay. Yep. Yeah. So implementing the best practices. Yeah. Look, you talked about any other points you have in this?
Yes, let me just add, many people see lessons learned as a formal process. I must do that to get the tick on my checklist or the sponsor's checklist to get out of the whole program. No, it's not. And this is why I'm also saying you should give them the opportunity to talk about it. It's it's more valuable to have a storytelling approach, where one program manager, maybe also weekly or monthly, explains about the top 3 learnings out of his program to all his other colleagues, so that they can see, oh, that's also something relevant in my program, and I try it out. And the more of these kind of stories you have, you can have also a collection of stories, like these kind of interviews, or program managers are interviewed or give testimonials. However you do that, I think it's very critical, so that the people learn through that, or do a podcast. It's also possible. And then sales is also depending on that learnings. The trainings are building on this kind of learning, so multiple usages of the lessons learned process.
Yeah, and lesson learned are not just negative. If something bad happened, you talk about that, or lessons are also positive. Something you tried and it worked really well. Something.
But Dharam, I would say there's nothing negative. It's the only thing that would be negative in my view is that you don't do it. But if you have critical incidents in your program, you always learn from that. And I believe, and now turn it around, I think you learn most from these kind of critical things. And you should emphasize those also in your interviews. Because then the other again sees that you're very reflective, that you take something out of it, and just not say, okay, oh, it was so difficult, I did not pass the threshold. And so they would say, okay, that's not the one I need.
Yeah, yeah. So they're looking for positivity and what you're going to bring in the organization and how you're going to change the way, something, whatever learned can be applied to this particular program and get us the results. All right, this is it for now. Thank you, Reinhard, for your responses. A lot of learning from these questions and the responses. I hope people find these, the response from you useful and learn from those responses and apply them into the interview. So love to know if you guys have found this interview useful, and also more important, did you got the interview, you passed the interview and got the job. Like to know that as well. And he said, because that response from Reinhard or the discussion you had made the big difference. Love to know that as well. So,
okay, all the best.
Yeah, best of luck for your interview, and you will see us again with more interview questions. So stay tuned and see you again. Bye. Take care.